Noorsign Books presents Ramadan Miracles, Stories of Faith Found in the Ordinary. Recipe for Return, Part 3, The Last Ingredient. A few nights before Laylatul Qadr, Rima kneels on the cold tiles of a dark restaurant, her hands finally open. After 2 years of cooking with anger as her only spice, she's about to discover that the last ingredient isn't in any recipe book. It's in the letting go. A few nights later, at 3 a.m, the restaurant was a cave of shadows. Rima sat cross-legged on the cool tiles by the counter, back to the wall, hands limp in her lap. The room smelled of old oil and fresh paint and burned kibbeh. For the first time in 2 years, she spoke to Allah without pretending. Ya Allah. The words felt resty, then poured. I'm not here to ask for a lease, or revenge, or even for the recipes. I'm here because I can't carry this anymore. Her voice shook in the empty space. I am so tired. I have been holding this anger like a hot pan with no towel, and it's burned through skin and muscle and bone, and I still won't put it down. Tears slid freely now, leaving tracks through dust. I told myself I was angry because he left, but I realized tonight I'm angry because I believed him when he left. I believed the restaurant was his, the legacy his, that I was just the woman behind the stove. Her breath hitched. So I cooked to prove him wrong. Every dish a courtroom, every plate evidence. No wonder nothing tastes right. I'm feeding a judge who isn't even here. She stared at her scarred palms. I don't want to cook like this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. Images trembled. Layla in the hospital, Tariq's guarded eyes, Noor's careful kindness, the verse she'd once scraped off a plaque. And let them pardon and overlook. Would you not like that Allah should forgive you? You asked us to forgive, Ya Allah, not because people deserve it, but because we need it. 25 days of Ramadan gone, 5 left. Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, was tonight. The odd-numbered nights in the last 10 days, when the Quran was first revealed, when the sky opened and mercy poured down like rain. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I forgive him. The words startled her. She said them again, steadier. I forgive him. Not because it was nothing. It was something. He broke things, took things, diminished me, but I am done making that the center of my life. She placed her hands, now open, on her knees. Help me keep them like this, open, for you, for my children, for the people I feed. The city stirred outside. A truck rattled past. A bird called. The first gray light of dawn slipped over the sill. Inside, something in her chest, long twisted, locked, shifted. Not healed, but reset. She stood, knees protesting. There was somewhere she needed to go. The ICU corridor at dawn was almost peaceful. Nurses changed shifts in low voices. Machines hummed. Through the window of Lila's room, the sky lightened over the sea. Rima asked the night nurse, please, just a few minutes. One look at her face, and the nurse nodded. 5. Inside, Lila lay amid tubing and monitors, impossibly small. Her bun was still in place, of course it was. Rima took her hand, warm, fragile. Sitt Layla, she whispered. Can you hear me? The eyelids fluttered. Dark eyes slivered open. Ya binti. I'm here. Rima's fingers tightened. Sitt, my hands. You were right. They were closed. Layla's mouth curved, barely. Now they are not. Rima almost laughed. It came out a sob. "I forgive him," she said softly. Behind her, the heart monitor kept time, steady. "I forgive him," she repeated. "Not for him, for me, for my hands, for the food, for Allah." Tears dripped onto Layla's fingers. "I am tired of tasting anger in everything I make," she whispered. "Tired of letting what he did define what I am." She bent, pressing her forehead to Layla's hand. "I'm letting go, Sitt. I'm opening my hands." For a moment, there was only the machine's soft breathing and the thud of Rima's heart in her ears. Then, Layla's fingers twitched, squeezing. "The book," she breathed, voice like smoke. "Under the counter, third tile. I left it when I knew I was ill. I knew you would return. When you were ready." Rima froze. "Here? In the restaurant?" Layla's eyes, suddenly clear, locked onto hers. A faint smile. "I was waiting for you to be ready." The first faint fajr adhan rose from somewhere below. Dawn washed the room in pale blue. Layla's eyes drifted shut. Her hand relaxed, still in Rima's. Rima sat with her until the nurse tapped gently and said time was up. In the corridor, she leaned against the wall, the echo of Layla's words filling her. "Under the counter, third tile. I knew you would return." This wasn't a test. It was a gift that had been waiting on the other side of forgiveness. Back in the restaurant, the morning light revealed every crack and stain. Rima went straight to the counter, knelt. Her fingers found the familiar loose tile with the crescent chip. She worked it free. Behind it, a plastic-wrapped bundle waited, dry and safe. Her hands shook as she opened it. A soft-covered notebook emerged, floral fabric faded, edges softened by years of use, olive oil stains, turmeric smudges, pomegranate splashes, and Layla's unmistakable hand in looping Arabic. Page after page of recipes, not rigid formulas, stories. Kibba, bulgur, lamb, onion, spices. Knead with gratitude, not anger. Fatouche, taste the lemon before you trust it. Each one has its own mood. Lentil soup. This cured your father-in-law's bad temper every Thursday. Extra cumin on hard weeks. Margins lined with drawings of herbs. Notes like small dua. Stir like you mean it. Taste before you season. The food will tell you what it needs. On the first page, in larger, careful calligraphy, "For Rima, who was never my daughter-in-law, but always my daughter. The food was always yours. You just needed to remember." Rima pressed the notebook to her chest. Her knees hit the floor. Her forehead followed, touching cool tile in sajda. The notebook held tight against her heart. Tears soaked into the worn fabric cover. When she rose, her face was wet, her eyes clear. The recipes were here. But more importantly, she finally understood. They had never been enough on their own. The last 3 days of Ramadan, the restaurant quietly came back to life. No sign on the door yet, no formal opening, just Rima, Mona, and eventually Noor moving through the kitchen as if they'd never left, pots clanging, water running, spices blooming in hot oil. The gas range, second-hand but sturdy, hissed to life. The old counter hosted its first mountain of chopped parsley in years. The notebook sat open, but more as a blessing than a manual. Rima started with kiba. She soaked the bulgur properly this time, let it rest until it swelled and softened, ground the lamb twice, grated onion, squeezed out the juice.
measured allspice and cinnamon in her palm, not a spoon, adjusting by scent. Most importantly, she approached the bowl with softness. Her fingers sank into the mixture. She kneaded slowly, almost tenderly, thinking not of Samir, not of proving anything, but of Layla teaching her to tuck the first kibbeh shell, of Tariq as a boy stealing raw bits, of tired students and weary taxi drivers who had broken their fast in this room. "Bismillah," she whispered, palms working. "Thank you for this meat, for this grain, for these hands." Oil heated in the pan. She shaped the first kibbeh, thumb hollowing the center just right, sealed it, eased it into the oil. It sizzled like a promise. When it was done, she let it cool slightly, took a careful bite, spat the tiniest piece to protect the fast. The taste hit her tongue, and her knees almost buckled. The bulgur melted, the lamb was light and tender, the spice warm, not harsh, no bitterness, no fight, just welcome. Mona arrived mid-afternoon, carrying lemons and gossip, then fell silent as soon as she tasted. "Wallah," she whispered, "she's back." "Who?" Rima asked. "You," Mona said, "and her." They laughed and cried in the same breath. Word spread faster than Rima had expected. Neighbors saw the door open, smelled onions and olive oil, and peeked in. One offered to scrub tables. Another brought a stack of mismatched chairs. Someone sent their teenage son to fix a flickering light. Noor arrived with spreadsheets and a calm efficiency that made Rima's heart ache with pride. "We need plates," Noor said, scanning the room, "and glasses. And what about a name?" "Later," Rima replied, stirring lentils. "First, feed." They prepped for iftar as if the whole neighborhood would come, though they'd only invited a few. Mona, some shopkeepers, the stationery store owner, Ahmed from down the street. Rima moved through the kitchen like a woman inhabiting her own body for the first time in years. Lentil soup simmered, golden. She added cumin with a practiced pinch, lemon with a reverent squeeze. Fatouche waited, pita fried and cooling, vegetables chopped, the dressing held back until the last moment so nothing went soggy. Stuffed grape leaves nestled in a pot, pomegranate molasses and cinnamon scenting the air. Late that afternoon, Tariq appeared in the doorway again. He held a box of dates like a shield. "Mama." Rima wiped her hands, heart leaping to old defenses. He took a breath. "I'm sorry." The words sounded awkward in his mouth, unused. "I was unfair," he said, "afraid. It was always your kitchen. I knew that. I just didn't want to watch you get hurt again if it failed." Rima studied his face, Samir's angles, Lila's eyes, something entirely his. "Come here," she said at last. "Taste." He obeyed, like the boy who used to sneak into the kitchen after school. She handed him a piece of bread, dipped in kibbeh. He chewed. His eyes shone. His whispered. "It tastes like tatas," he whispered. "No," Rima said softly. "It tastes like mine, with her blessing." He swallowed hard, set down the dates, rolled up his sleeves. "What can I do?" "Onions," she said. He picked up a knife. At the counter, side by side, they began to chop. The last night of Ramadan, the restaurant filled without announcement. Plastic chairs scraped tile. Borrowed tables bore mismatched plates. The adhan for Maghrib from the mosque next door floated in through open windows and out again on murmured dua. On the tables, everything. Fatouche, glistening, sumac bright as a drumbeat. Kibbeh piled high, steam rising. Lentil soup in bowls, a streak of olive oil shining on each. Stuffed grape leaves gleaming in their pomegranate glaze. Tabbouleh like a small green forest. Hummus creamy and dignified. Rima stood in the kitchen doorway as the call to break the fast ended. "Bismillah," she said, voice barely audible above the clatter, but the room seemed to hear it anyway. Dates were passed, water sipped, hushed gratitude offered. Then spoons clinked, bread tore. Someone sighed over the first taste of soup. An old man near the window took a piece of kibbeh, bit in, closed his eyes. "Sitt Layla," he breathed. Rima stepped closer. "She taught me," she said quietly. He opened his eyes, studied her. "She'd be proud, ya benti." All evening, that sentence hummed in her chest like a second heartbeat. Mid-meal, Noor slipped an envelope onto the counter. "The man at the stationery shop," Noor said quietly, said someone left it with him this morning, addressed to Matbakh Layla, care of the old building. Rima turned it over. No stamp, just her name. Inside, in a familiar, sharp handwriting. "The food was always yours. I'm sorry it took standing in my own kitchen to understand." No signature. None needed. Rima read it twice, then set it aside, next to Layla's stained notebook. Both testimonies now. One of blood, one of love. She did not feel triumph. She felt release. Back in the dining room, laughter rose. Children argued over the last stuffed grape leaf. Mona scolded someone for not taking second helpings. Tarek moved between tables with a tray. Noor refilled water glasses, her face alight. The restaurant sounded like itself again. Later, when plates were mostly empty and people lingered over tea and jalab, a young woman approached the counter, notebook in hand. "Excuse me," she said shyly, "what's the name for the bill?" Rima glanced at the bare wooden plaque on the wall, the one she'd once scraped clean of Lila's golden verse. It stared back at her, blank. She reached for a marker. Her hand didn't shake. In bold, simple letters, she wrote, "Matbakh Rima." The woman smiled. "Beautiful," she said. "May Allah put barakah in it." "Ameen," Rima answered. She stepped back, looking at the name, her name, on these walls. No borrowed legacy, no husband's surname, just Rima, standing on the shoulders of Lila's love, under the gaze of a Lord who had waited patiently for her to open her hands. She joined her guests, sat at a corner of a crowded table, and finally, at last, broke her own fast. A piece of bread, a spoonful of lentil soup. She tasted. Cumin warm, lemon bright, lentils soft as a blessing. It tasted like mercy. It tasted like coming home. And somewhere in the hum of conversation, in the clink of spoons and the rustle of bread, she could almost hear Lila's voice, amused and approving. "There she is." Rima smiled, closed her eyes for a heartbeat, opened them to her full, noisy, imperfect, blessed kitchen. Tomorrow would be Eidul Fitr. Her return had just begun.
You've been listening to Recipe for Return, a Noorsign Books original. And so, Rima's journey comes full circle. Not to a perfect kitchen, not to a restored marriage, but to something far more precious. Her own name on the door, her own hands open, her own heart finally at peace. She learned that forgiveness isn't a gift you give someone else. It's the ingredient you add so you can taste your own life again. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next miracle. Visit noorsignbooks.com to join our community and get the full collection. Jazakumullah khairan.